We're gonna make 3 dishes today. First dish is a butternut squash and sweet potato dish. And so what I did was I actually pre-cooked these in boiling water, so they're actually all pre-cooked. And I'm just gonna take them. Now, if you look at them, you can kind of see they're like a French fry after you cook them for the first time, and some of the starch comes out. And we kind of want that. We want the starch to come out, and because basically that's gonna create a crunchiness on the outside. And so without that, it's harder to get like a crunchy flavor. So what we have here, we got our butternut squash and sweet potato. And I'm just gonna add this to the pan, or to the bowl, because I do want to coat these with just a little bit of oil and a little bit of seasoning. So we got some extra virgin olive oil. This actually comes from where we make our juices as well. Just a little bit of sea salt. And I'm gonna use, yeah, again, we don't cook with a lot of salt here. We try to be very low sodium compared to a lot of other companies, and more healthy. So what we're gonna do, when you don't use salt, you wanna use like a lot of spice. So right here we have like a Baharat seasoning, which is basically kind of like a Middle Eastern spice mix of like cinnamon, allspice, nutmeg. You can find it in pretty much any store now. And I'm just gonna toss this. And again, like if you smell that, you can smell the spices. All right. So again, they look overcooked. That's exactly what we want. And all we're gonna do, we're gonna get these into the oven. All right, so the next thing that we're gonna do, we're gonna get some lentils ready. So again, we're just gonna get just a little bit of oil. I use extra virgin olive oil, or you can use canola oil. And then we just wanna basically, kind of like you're making a pilaf. I'm not gonna be too fancy with this. We'll cut them like medium dice or so. Again, it's like Thanksgiving and it's your family. Nothing has to be perfect. Okay, so we're just gonna add these to the pan. We're gonna let them sweat just for a few minutes. And then we're gonna add the lentils. We're gonna actually get a little bit of garlic as well. All right, so we're just gonna chop some garlic. And again, hopefully we'll get it done in the next 20, 30 minutes. So again, I'm just chopping these right here. And that's the sound we wanna hear right there. That means, the moisture's coming out, flavor is coming out. And where's my lentils? We got some green lentils right here. You can use black lentils, pui lentils, pink lentils, whatever. So the next thing that we're gonna do, we wanna add just a touch of salt, not too much. And again, I want those to sweat for, like a minute. I want to coat all the lentils with the oil, and it does 2 things. One, it will make them so the starch doesn't leak out as much. So like when you do like a rice pilaf, the first thing is you sweat it in a little bit of oil, and the oil actually coats the outside of the grain, so not as much of the starch comes out. And so what we're gonna do, I'm not gonna even measure, because we're gonna strain them. I'm just gonna use some water. You can use some chicken stock, vegetable stock, the turkey stock. And I'm just gonna maybe do like an inch and a half higher than the lentils are. So the next thing that we're gonna do, we're gonna start with the turkey tagine. So what I have here is, I got some turkey thighs, and turkey thighs are really forgiving. I mean, if you use turkey breast, it's really easy to overcook and they're dry. But turkey thighs, you can kind of overcook them and they're not overcooked. They're still gonna be really tender. So this one, we're actually not braising, but we're just going to kind of cook in the oven. So we got some salt, and we have some of that Baharat seasoning, again, like the allspice, the nutmeg, the cinnamon. We have some paprika. Just a little bit of paprika. And I got my paella pan on. A lot of paprika.
That's a lot.
That's a chef's a little bit. Let's see, what else here? Again, we're just kind of shooting, you know, we'll make it taste good. Maybe a little cardamom, Doug's favorite spice. And just a little bit. Cardamom goes a long way. And we're just gonna kind of mix this. I mean, you want it really, really coated. I don't want the heat on too high because I'm gonna burn the spices and burn the turkey, and you don't want that. Okay. So we'll kind of just let this go. And I want to spread it out so it's not crowding, because if it crowds, it'll steam. And then we have, you know, our turkey stock on the heat right now. Okay, so the next thing that we're gonna do, we're just gonna add some onion. Again, I want this like really, really rustic. So it's okay if it's not cut perfectly. So we'll call this like the 25-minute stew. We'll see if it'll. All right, so we got that. How about a little fennel? Everybody like fennel here? So that anise flavor. Never throw these out. This is one of the best tasting items. In fact, what I should do, add it to the stock, add some flavor. Whenever I make vegetable stock, I always use fennel in the fennel bulbs. Maybe some parsley in here. The more flavorful your stock is, you know, the better your final ingredient or item is gonna be. Okay, so I'm just gonna cut these just like this. Again, kind of big, because I know in like 20 minutes it's gonna cook through anyways. So now one of the big mistakes that people do is they'll try to touch it and mix it around too much. Don't touch it. So again, some of these tomatoes. Now, here's where we have a lot of fruit here. So what makes this kind of authentic is if you go to like North Africa, Morocco, they cook with, you know, as Doug mentioned, they eat dried fruit just by itself. But in something like a tagine, they will use it in the dish. And it's gonna give a sweetness without me adding sugar or honey or, you know, wine or whatever it is. So I'm just gonna add them in whole. Maybe like, now I don't wanna do too many because as they cook down, kind of the sweetness, they'll break down a little too much. So maybe just like 5 or 6. And then some plums. Or prunes for anybody over 80 here. And again, look how beautiful it is right now. So just a little bit of prunes or plums. So now we'll kind of mix it around. Again, if you want to use lamb, chicken, any kind of meat, you can use it. Salmon, tofu. So I'm gonna probably let this go another 5 minutes. I don't wanna cook it too much on here because now that fruit is hitting the bottom of the pan and then it'll get really hard and I don't want that. So again, I'm just gonna kinda let this go, leave that here. Now, one of the mistakes or something that people don't do at home, they don't season as they cook. If you just season at the end, you're gonna taste too much salt and there's no balance of flavor. You have to season as you go. So that's why you see me add salt at every step. And in the end, you're like, oh my God, you added so much salt. In the end, I guarantee you I added less salt than you would ever get at a restaurant or than you're probably using at home. Because I'm using it at certain stages of the cooking process to bring out the flavor. I would say the biggest difference, because people ask me all the time, like, what's the biggest difference between home cooks and chefs? And it's really seasoning. And it's not really about salt, but other ingredients as well, because we don't use a lot of salt here. So what we do is, okay, how can we add cinnamon? Or how can we add nutmeg? How can we add balsamic vinegar to our nuts, or lemon or lime. Next thing we're gonna do, we're gonna start on that lentil dish. So we got the green beans here. I already picked the stems off, washed them. I'm not blanching them at all, because again, I don't need that color. Let's see here. Okay, so I want that on high, and you should never do this when you're pointing with a knife. Safety first here. Okay, so again, I didn't blanch these, just like this. Again, it's a very vegetable-heavy meal, and that's the way that we cook here. As you can see, we're like a very plant-based kind of company. Should probably add just a little bit of oil again. Now for this, I want to see the oil like shimmering, kind of like moving. Otherwise it's not too hot. And if your oil is not too hot, your food ends up taking in a lot more fat. And so it ends up steaming instead of sauteing. Okay, so in the meantime, while that gets hot, we'll just cut these button mushrooms. You can use any kind of mushrooms. Again, you can see this is nothing fancy in my cutting here. We'll check on the... Smells pretty good. You can add some wine at this point. So I think what I'm gonna do is now I'm going to add the olives. So I got these jalapeno stuffed olives. So again, I'm just gonna add these. Probably a few too many, but that's okay. I love olives. I'm just gonna add a little bit of ginger too. Again, I want this to be really, really flavorful, but I'm just gonna kind of julienne this. Okay. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna add half to here, a little bit to here, there. We'll add the mushrooms now too. We want to get those mushrooms down. Let's see where those lentils are at. So lentils will be ready. Again, you're probably all wondering, how do I do this all at the same time? I'm so nervous. I'll never be able to do that. Cook the lentils like 3 days before, 4 days before. Okay, I'm gonna add just a touch of salt again to this. Otherwise, if I add the salt at the end, you're just gonna taste salt. It's not gonna be good at all. Let's see, what else? How about a little bit of fennel? And these are the stalks. Never throw these out. You can eat them or pickle them. I pickled fennel a few weeks ago. It was really good. Okay, I think this is now ready. So we got the fruit is starting to cook down a little bit, taking in some of that moisture that's in there. And I'm just gonna bring it up about, maybe about that much. So it's gonna be infused with some of that turkey, some of that fennel, some of that ginger. And then here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna put this in the oven, but I don't wanna put it in the oven until this comes to a boil. Otherwise, if you bring it in, put it in the oven before it gets to a boil, it's gonna take you a lot longer to cook, and your product won't come out as good. So make sure whenever you're making a stew, you bring it to a boil if you're adding liquid before it gets in there. So the tahini sauce is really easy. So what we're gonna do, we have this tahini right here, some organic tahini. And you can see the oil separates. It's just the natural oil from the sesame seeds. Okay, so now what we're gonna do, we're gonna add some cranberries and one of my favorites, the tart cherries. So this is just, hopefully you guys are getting some ideas of how to cook with dried fruit. It's gonna add some sweetness. Again, not too much. I don't wanna overpower it. Okay, a base for tahini is about 1:1 water to tahini. So you can see it's at a boil right here. Turn the fire off. But you guys can see, like, look how pretty that is. Really nice. See, look at the nice color on there, and I didn't blanch them at all. That's why you need really high heat. If it wasn't high heat, the color will cook out. Always taste as you go. A little bit of that. We're gonna start adding some acid in there. To the lentils. So, you know, they're not mushy at all. And then I'm just gonna add this to here. And then I'm just gonna mix it around a little bit. I'll use obviously a different spoon. I want this to be really, really flavorful. If I put it in the oven and it's not flavorful, it's not gonna be good. So here's where we're gonna add a little bit of lemon juice. Again, we got the fruit in there. I have some sumac here. It's like a lemony spice, and it's a great substitution. So really lemony. It's kind of like the base of za'atar, and fantastic. It's a great substitution for like salt or lemon. Isn't that really good? So now I'm just gonna kind of mix this. Man, and if you were right here, you'd smell like this lemony flavor coming up. Okay, so now we're gonna add a bunch of herbs. Does everybody like cilantro here, or everybody's good? Okay. I know some people do not like it.
When you cook it, when you like just tearing it off the top there, do you use the stem part of
yeah,
it too?
I do.
That's all.
There's a lot of flavor in the stem. A lot of people who are like, oh, don't use the stems.
No, I always pull it off.
No. Use it. There's so much flavor in the stems.
Parsley's the same way.
Parsley the same way. I mean, I don't use like the bottom of the stem,
Right, yeah.
you know, but after, like, these are washed and like I use this, yeah, the flavor's in the stem. So again, you can eat it just like this, you know, with, you know, a grilled chicken or salmon, or this is red wine vinegar. And I'm gonna use some pickled peppers that we just, that I really love. Again, you don't have to use these. I'm just using them because we have them. But they give like this great acidic, spicy flavor. And cooking is all about balance of flavor. You know, sweet, spicy, savory. So hopefully you'll have all of that here. You know, the sweetness from the fruit, the savoriness from the lentils, you know, that earthiness, and then that bright from the parsley and the pickled veg. So after you spill your tahini all over the countertop, you want to put it in your food processor. And I'm just going to measure out about the same amount of cold water. You know, a lot of people will use like ice water, which is a really good trick. I definitely would say use that if you can, but this is fine as well. So now I'm gonna add a lot of lemon. You need a lot of lemon. Tahini on its own is really bitter. I would say, yeah, 1.5 lemons per jar. But again, we're gonna taste everything. And we can adjust. You don't need to do this in a blender. You can do it in just by hand as well. Some salt. I'm gonna add some garlic. I love tahini because you can use it as like a sauce for vegetables, for meats, and it's, I mean, think of it. You can use tahini or you can use ranch dressing, which has no nutritional value, you know, or you can use this high protein, high fiber sauce. You guys are probably thinking like I'm adding like all these different ingredients. It's all about layering of flavor again. The difference between adding garlic and not adding garlic, you know, because let's just say you're in a rush, you're gonna be so much happier after you add all these items. Okay, so we got the tahini sauce right there. Pretty easy. We'll kind of flatten this out. So think of this as like your shepherd's pie, right? A little healthier than mashed potatoes, right? You know, when I have a break, I always drink Tallulah as well. So, Nothing goes better with tahini than bilberry banana. Okay, everything's looking good. We're gonna make a little herb salad. So we got some herbs right there. So I'm just gonna rough chop all these. So I think what we'll make is something like a gremolata, and it's essentially kind of like an Italian herb, kind of like a salsa verde. Okay, so we're gonna do a little bit of lemon. So we're gonna just do a little bit. By the way, if you're doing like a fish, like let's say a halibut or scallops or any kind of vegetarian dish, this would be a fantastic topping. Brings a lot of brightness. And then what we're gonna do, we're gonna take our lemon. Just a little bit of salt, not too much. And then I'm getting so, oh, there it is. Not too much. Where was that red wine vinegar? That's right in front of me. This is also like a chimichurri. You know, I can add a little peppers and that's a chimichurri. But this will go with a lot of different stuff. So you can see the tahini's kind of firming up, like it's not moving around at all. The turkey, looking good. I'm gonna take this out. I'm gonna raise the temperature a little bit. Add just a little bit of the herbs. I'm gonna add some dates, chopped dates. I didn't want to roast the dates with it. These are de Gladnor dates, so a little softer, really fantastic. More closer to like a medjool kind of date with the softness and the moisture in there. So I don't want to do too much, just a little bit. The best thing to do when you're cooking is, you know, if you do just a little bit, you're gonna have people asking for more and wanting more. And that's what you want people to do. Okay. Pomegranate right here. So, you know, it's kind of like the pomegranate season. Definitely will wear gloves for this. So I'm just gonna add some pomegranate to it, and then we'll get ready to plate this up, and then everything else should be ready about the same time. Just a few pomegranates. Now the heat from the sweet potato and the butternut squash will kind of heat that date as well. Okay, so there's one dish. A little fennel. Okay, what I'm gonna do, just to kind of I always finish with a little bit of acid. You don't want to add it too early because then it can kind of get a little bitter. Some pistachios. Turkey tagine. In 30 minutes. Some of that herb salad. Enjoy.